Okay, we're gonna reconvene the conference committee on House Bill 300 HD1 SD1 relating to the state budget. For the House, it's myself as chair and everybody like the last time.
For the Senate, same conferees.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, so first of all, I want to thank you for all your hard work and as well as you and your staff and as well as the finance staff are working, especially because we worked on Easter Sunday and gets to so that we'd be able to move on this bill today. So we want to thank you for all of that, and you know, I think it went fairly smoothly this year. You know, even though it took some time, but we worked through it, and I appreciate everything that.
New speaker.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you very much. You have any opening remarks?
No, I definitely want to thank you and your team. You know, it was really many long hours, as you mentioned. The good thing is, unfortunately for you, Lisa, we weren't here until 2 a.m. And I really appreciate Jenna, your vice chair, because you know her contributions really allowed us to move things faster. But definitely your staff. I mean, your staff and the Ways and Means staff, they worked really hard. They're very diligent. They're detail-oriented, and they make sure that all the T's are crossed and the I's are dotted. I want to thank both the Finance Committee and the Ways and Means Committee, all the subject matter chairs, because all of their input helped craft the budget. And a big mahalo to the Speaker and the Senate President. And we also wanted to thank the governor's team, including the lieutenant governor, the budget director, and I just want to give a shout out to Rando Nishiyama because, you know, I don't know. Yeah, so So whatever you can do to prevent him from retiring, we would appreciate. And I also want to thank the vice chair, Senator Moriwaki, and your House CIP chair, Representative Kitagawa, because they worked many hours to make sure that the CIP budget was closed. And then also I wanted to thank your GIA chair, Representative Holt, because it took a lot of people to put this together. So thank you very much.
Yeah, as you mentioned, you know, it does take a team, and of course, we had Jenna was there the whole time. So, Vice Chair, I thank her for all her hard work as well. And you know, and both of us done CIP before, so you know what it takes to do CIP and how much time work it takes. So, thank you for all that, and of course, our new GIA chair that's helped us work on all these things. Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
I've mentioned that before. Okay, but you know, because of that, I changed my mind. We're going to recess. No, only kidding. Okay, we are gonna recess because we're gonna have the OHA budget and judge budget gavel in, so we comply with the conference rules. So we're gonna recess.
Welcome to the Conference Committee of the House Judiciary and Hawaiian Affairs Committee and the Senate Judiciary Committee for the purpose of considering one bill, House Bill 400, relating to the judiciary. This is the judiciary budget. On behalf of the House, we have co-chairs Tarnas and Yamashita, managers Poi Poi, Takenouchi, and Garcia.
Thanks for the sense. Myself as chair, co-chair Senator Moriwaki, and manager Awa.
Thank you very much. We're going to have discussion about these, about this bill and what we're doing with it after we finish with the state budget. So I would like to recess while the Finance and Ways and Means Committee continues their work.
Absolutely.
Okay?
Thank you.
Recess. Welcome. This is the Conference Committee of the House and Senate. It is Monday, April 21st, 5:11 p.m. agenda here in Conference Room 309. We're here for the purpose of considering one bill, House Bill 410, relating to the budget of the Office of Hawaiian Affairs. On behalf of the House, we have Tarnas and Yamashita as co-chairs, members Poi Poi, Takenouchi, and Garcia.
On the Senate side, we have Senate conferees, Chair Richards, myself, Senator Moriwaki as co-chair, and Senator Keokololi and DeCourt as members.
Thank you. With your permission, Senator, what I'd like to do is recess this hearing so that Ways and Means and Finance can continue their discussion on the budget and then reconvene after the judiciary budget is completed.
Sounds good.
Okay? Okay, recess.
Okay, we're going to reconvene the Conference Committee on House Bill 300, HD1, SD1. At this point in time, we're going to read off what we have agreed upon so far, and actually will be the bill. Oh, one real quick members and ladies and gentlemen in the audience. What we're going to be reading is the page numbers, followed by the program ID, and then followed by the sequence number. And then if there is an adjustment, we'll read off what the adjustment is. But you can follow the agree, disagree sheets that we posted online. So it should be clear to everybody of what we're talking about going forward. Okay, thank you.
Okay, for Department of Agriculture, on page 11, AGR 141, sequence number 218-001, House Senate adjustment convert 7.5 FTE from W to A, and $422,604 in A funds in fiscal year 26. Page 12, same program ID, sequence 218-001, Senate. Page 13, same program ID, 218-003, House Senate adjustment, $2 million W fund, fiscal year 26. And page 19, AGR 192, sequence 2080-001, House Senate adjustment, convert one permanent from trust to 100,000 A funds in fiscal year 26, convert to 164,450 P funds in fiscal year 27. And the following sequences have been limboed. AGR sequence 2060-001, AGR 122, sequence 2060-001, AGR 131, sequence 2060-001, AGR 151, sequence 2060-001, AGR 153, sequence 100-001, AGR 171, sequence 20-001, 101-001, and 2060-001, AGR 192, sequence 60-001 and 2060-001, and AGR 812, sequence 2060-001.
Okay, moving on to DAGs. On page 25, AGS 101, sequence 101-001, House Senate Adjustment, 6 permanent FTE and $2,920,548 in FY26, and 6 perm FTE and $386,096 in FY27. On page 40, AGS 881, sequence 100-001, House Senate Adjustment, $2 million in both years. AGS 881 adds House Senate Adjustment, sequence 3000, adds, reduces all B funds and N funds positions in AGS 881 and restores them as A funds and N funds positions in FY27. The following sequences have been limboed. AGS 111, sequence 2100-001 and 2101-001, AGS 131, sequence 2060-001, AGS 203, sequence 100-001, AGS 221, sequence 2060-001, AGS 231, sequence 103-001, AGS 233, sequence 100-001, AGS 807, 2060-001, and AGS 879, sequence 2060-001.
For the Attorney General, the following sequence has been limboed. ATG 100, sequence 2060-001.
Moving on to BED, on page 49, bed 100, 2101-001, Senate. Page 52, bed 101, 1100-001, House. Page 70, bed 143, 100-001, House. Page 70, bed 143, 101-001, House. Page 70, bed 143, 1100-001, House. Bed 144, House Senate adjustment to do 93,226 in both fiscal years. Page 79, bed 170, 2101-001, Senate. Page 80, bed 170, 2103-001, Senate. And the following sequences have been limboed. Bed 100, sequence 2100-001 and 2102-001. Bed 101, 218-001. Bed 107, 2060-001. Bed 113, sequence 60-001 and 2060-001. Bed 114, sequence 100-001, 218-001, and 218-002. Bed 116, sequences 100-001 and 321-001. Bed 143, sequence 2060-001. And bed 144, sequence 104-001. Bed 160, sequence 101-001, and bed 180, sequence 100-001.
Okay, we're moving on to Budget and Finance on page 83, Buff 101, 1100-001, House. Add Buff 101, sequence 3000, House Senate Adjustment 1,100,564. On page 89, Buff 762, 60-001, Senate. The following have been limboed. Buff 101, sequence 100-001, Buff 101, sequence 1100-001, Buff 141, sequence 218-001, and 2060-001. This is yours.
For DCCA, the following sequences have been limboed. CCA 103, sequence 100-001, and CCA 901, sequence 101-001, and 102-001.
Okay, for the Department of Defense on page 102, Def 116, 60-001, Senate. Page 113, Def 118, 2060-001, House Senate Adjustment, 1 temp position, and 51,312 in both years. The following sequences have been limboed. Def 110, sequence 105-001, 106-001, 218-001, 2060-001. Def 112, sequence 60-001, Def 116, 20-001, Def 118, sequence 62-001.
Next, moving on to the Department of Education. On page 116, EDN 100, sequence 109-106, House. Page 117, EDN 100, 109-107, House. Page 119, EDN 100, 2101-001, Senate. Page 125, EDN 300, 106-001, Senate. Page 129, EDN 300, 109-101, Senate. Page 131, EDN 400, 103-001, House. Page 131, EDN 400, 105-001, House. Page 132, EDN 400, sequences 218-001 and 328-001, House Senate adjustment for $25.138 million in fiscal year 26 and $24 million in fiscal year 27. Page 137, EDN 500, 2100-001, Senate. Page 138, EDN 600, 100-001, House Senate adjustment to do $8,497,730 in fiscal year 26 and $657,875 thousand in fiscal year 27. And the following sequences have been limboed. In EDN 100, sequence 2100-001, EDN 200, sequences 104-001 and 2060-001. In EDN 300, sequence 109-105 and 2060-001. In EDN 400, sequences 321-001 and 2060-001. EDN 407, sequence 2060-001. In EDN 450, sequences 321-001 and 321-002. In EDN 600, sequence 30-001, and in EDN 612, sequences 30-001 and 100-001.
Okay, for the Office of the Governor, page 142, this is a Will Kane special. GOV 100, sequence 100-001, House Senate adjustment, $150,000 in A funds for fiscal year 26. Oh, and the DHHL, HHL 602, adding House Senate adjustment, sequence 3100-001, House Senate adjustment, $97,041,664 for fiscal year 26.
Okay, moving on to the Department of Human Services. On page 149, HMS 220-2060-001, House Senate adjustment, reduction of 2 FTE and 140,952 W funds in both fiscal years. On page 163, HMS 229-2060-001 adds House Senate adjustment, reduction in House Senate adjustment, negative 1 FTE and negative 56,340 W funds in both fiscal years. On page 188, HMS 904-2060-001, House Senate adjustment, reduction of 2 FTEs and 81,324 A funds in both fiscal years. The following sequences have been limboed: HMS 229, sequence 72-001, HMS 236, sequence 2060-001, HMS 238, 2060-001, HMS 301, sequence 2060-001, HMS 302, 2060-001, HMS 501, sequence 2060-001, HMS 503, sequence 100-001, HMS 555, sequence 321-002, 321-004, 321-005, HMS 601, sequence 2060-001, HMS 777, sequence 100-001 and 101-001, HMS 802, sequence 2060-001, HMS 901, 2060-001, HMS 902, sequence 2060-001, and HMS 903, sequence 101-001 and 2060-001. For the Department of, for DHERD, on page 194, HERD 102, sequence 105-001, House. On page 195, HERD 102, sequence 106-001, House. On page 196, HERD 102, sequence 107-001, House. On page 197, HERD 102, sequence 108-001, House. And the following sequences have been labeled: HERD 102, sequence 100-001 and 101-001.
Okay, moving on to the Department of Health. On page 205, HTH 211-100-001, Senate. Page 206, HTH 212-100-001, House Senate adjustment for $132,489,400 in fiscal year 26 and $115,768,400 in fiscal year 27. Page 212, HTH 420-61-001, Senate. On page 216, HTH 430-101-001, House Senate adjustment for $16,600,000 in fiscal year 26. For HTH 560, sequence 3000 to do 1.5 million in both years. On page 231, HCH 730-1100-001, House Senate adjustment to do 1.75 million in both years. And the following sequences have been limboed. HCH 100, sequence 60-001 and 2060-001. HCH 420, sequence 60-001. HCH 430, sequences 60-001 and 2060-001. HCH 440, sequence 60-001 and 2060-001. HCH 460, sequences 20-001 and 20-002. HCH 560, sequence 2060-001. HCH 590, sequence 2060-001. HCH 596, sequence 321-001. HCH 760, sequence 60-001. HCH 840, sequences 62-001 and 102-001. HCH 849, sequence 61-001, and HCH 907, sequences 104-001 and 2060-001.
Okay, for the Department of Law on page 249, Law 503, sequence 102-001, House Senate adjustment, 6 permanent FTE, and $559,048 in FY26, and $741,447 in FY27. On page 251, Law 504, sequence 218-001, House Senate adjustment, 8 perm positions and $2,942,937 in FY26 and $2,292,014 in FY27. On page 58, Law 900, 2100-001, Senate. On page 258, Law 900, sequence 2101-001, Senate. The following sequences have been limboed. The following sequence has been limboed. Law 900, sequence 218-001 and 218-002.
Okay, moving on to Department of Labor. On page 270, LBR 902-2100-001, House Senate adjustment, $750,000 in fiscal year 26. For LBR 903, adding a sequence 3100-001, House Senate adjustment, $500,000 both years from AGR 192, sequence 100-001. On page 271, LBR 903, sequence 1100-001 and 2100-001, addressed in bill for $10 million. And there's addition, LBR 903, sequence 3000, House Senate adjustment for $497,040 in both years. The following sequences have also been limboed in LBR 111, sequence 2060-001, LBR 171, sequence 2060-001, LBR 902, sequence 2060-001, and LBR 903, sequence 1100-001 and 2100-001.
Okay, for LNR on page 274, LNR 172, 100-001, House Senate adjustment, $5,950,000 in FY26 and $9,380,000 in FY27. On page 275, LNR 401, sequence 20-001, House Senate adjustment reduces 1 temp FTE and $50,004 in both years. On page 276, LNR 402, 101-001, House. On page 280, LNR 402, sequence 104-001, House. On page 284, LNR 405, sequence 6-001, House. On page 285, LNR 504, 2100-001, Senate. On page 291, LNR 906-100-001, House Senate Adjustment 1 Perm FTE and for 43,188 in FY26, and 1 Perm FTE 86,376 in FY27. The following sequences have been limboed. LNR 101 sequence 100-001 and 101-001. LNR 401 sequence 2070-001. LNR 402 sequence 102-001, 103-001, 105-001, and 2070-001. LNR 504 sequence 62-001. LNR 801 sequence 2060-001, and LNR 906 sequence 2060-001. For Department of Public Safety on page 299, PSD 420 2060-001, House Senate Adjustment 2 FTE and reduce 116,000 in both years. The following sequence have been limboed. PSD 407 sequence 2060-001, PSD 420 sequence 2060-001, PSD 422 sequence 2060-001, PSD 613 sequence 2060-001.
For tax, the sequence that has been limboed is tax 105, sequence 2060-001.
Now, the Department of Transportation. Starting on page 309, TRN 102 2010-001, Senate. Page 310, TRN 102 2010-002, Senate. Page 315, TRN 195 2103-001, House Senate Adjustment moved to TRN 995, $350,000 in fiscal year 26. On page 317, TRN 331, 218-001, Senate. On page 318, TRN 395, 218-001, House Senate Adjustment $1 million in fiscal year 26, $1.5 million in fiscal year 27. Page 319, TRN 501, 321-001, Senate. Page 321, TRN 511, 321-001, Senate. Page 323, TRN 531, 32-001, Senate. Page 323, TRN 531, 321-001, Senate. Page 326, TRN 595, 36-001, Senate. Page 327, TRN 595, 39-102, Senate. Page 328, TRN 595, 218-001, Senate. And in TRN 995, adding a 3100-001 sequence for Sequence 3,000, sorry, and so 200,000 in both fiscal years. And then the following sequences have been limboed. TRN 102 sequences 104-001 and 2060-001. TRN 104 sequence 2060-001. TRN 114 sequence 2060-001. TRN 195 sequence 2060-001. TRN 301 sequence 218-002. TRN 501 sequences 218-001 and 2060-001. TRN 511 sequence 2060-001. TRN 531 sequence 2060-001. TRN 561 sequence 2060-001. TRN 595 sequences 328-001 and 2060-001. TRN 597 sequence 2060-001 and TRN 995 sequence 2060-001.
Okay, finally moving on to the University of Hawaii on page 334, UOH 130-001 House. Page 334, UOH 100, sequence 100-001 House. On page 335, UOH 100, sequence 101-001 House. On page 336, UOH 100, 102-001 House. On page 337, UOH 100, sequence 103-001 House. On page 338, UOH 100, sequence 2060-001, House Senate Adjustment, reduction of 9.9 B funds, FTEs in both fiscal years. On page 344, UOH 210, 30-001 House. On page 346, UOH 210, 2060-001, and House Senate Adjustment reduction of one position A fund and 39,000 39, this is a positions, yeah? 39 positions, FTEs, B funds, and 2,798,884 B funds in both fiscal years. On page 349, UOH 700-102-001, House. Page 350, UOH 700-2100-001, Senate. Page 351, UOH 800-2100-001, Senate. On 351, UOH 800-2101-001, Senate. UOH 354, page 354, UOH 900-1100-001, House. On page 354, UOH 900-2060-001, House Senate. Adjustment reduction of 10 FTEs B funds and 155,628 B funds in both fiscal years. The following sequences have been limboed. UOH 100, sequence 2018-003, UOH 110, sequence 100-001, and 2060-001, UOH 115, sequence 100-001, UOH 210, sequence 218-001 and 218-002, UOH 800, 2060-001, UOH 900, 100-001, and 2018-001. So these are all the changes that we made on the executive budget. And so at this time, we have comments. Yeah. So at this time, we'll have comments from our CIP people.
Okay. Thank you, Chair. So I'd first like to start off by thanking Speaker Nakamura and House leadership for the opportunity to work on CIP this year. I've learned a lot and am grateful that the House has trusted me with this responsibility. I'd also like to thank you, Chair, for your guidance in doing the CIP budget, and I've really appreciated your wisdom and insight during this process, especially since you've done CIP previously. Thank you also to Vice Chair Takenouchi, GIA Chair Holt for their help and support on the budget, and also to all of the Finance Committee members for their hard work in input and crafting this budget. Thank you also to my staff, Ryan and Wendy, who are sitting back there, for all their hard work and the many hours and late nights that they have spent with me working on the CIP budget. I couldn't have done it without you. And finally, thank you to the Senate, Chair Dela Cruz, and to you, Senator Moriwaki, for your collaboration on this budget. Senator Moriwaki, it has been a pleasure working with you, and I look forward to working with you in the interim and in the future on CIP.
Thank you. I too would like to thank our side, President Kochi and our WAM chair, as well as all of the members of our team here. And I would like to thank you as well. Both you, Chair Yamashita, and your team, as well as Representative Kitagawa, who has been a pleasure working together on collaborating on the CIP budget. So I'd like to just say that what we have here is the highlights that we'll present, but it does look at the essentials on health and safety, on compliance, on infrastructure, maintenance, and modernization of our state assets, and on the state's priorities to build affordable housing and infrastructure, support education and workforce development, economic development and diversification, including innovative agricultural production, and environmental sustainability. So with that, we're going to go through just the highlights of the budget. So Representative.
Great. So I'll start off with information on the amounts that were spent in the CIP budget. So the GO bond and GOR bond in fiscal year 26 is about $1.4 billion. Fiscal year 27 is about $423 million. All means of financing for fiscal year 26 is about $3.3 billion, and fiscal year 27 is about $2.3 billion. First off, housing initiatives. We've included $240 million for financing programs, including Rental Housing Revolving Fund and the Dwelling Unit Revolving Fund. $68 million for the Kalemomi Development Project, $37 million for Kauhale Development Projects, and $35 million for Kupuna Supportive Housing. Under agriculture, we have included $48 million for land acquisition to expand Hawaii's agriculture initiatives, $22 million for state irrigation projects and reservoir safety, and $7 million for Halava Animal Industry Facility.
And for defense, $35 million to support the 3rd Hawaii State Veterans Home on Maui, plus $58 million in federal funds, $10 million for siren maintenance and modernization statewide, $8 million for upgrades and improvements to National Guard Youth Challenge Academy's facilities in Kailailoa. And in economic development, diversification, and tourism, $36 million for repair and upgrades of the convention center, $29 million for post-harvest and food processing facilities, and $21 million for small animal slaughterhouse processing and storage facility.
Under education, we've included $71 million for deferred maintenance projects, $40 million for health and safety projects, $30 million for schools which serve military installations, including $120 million in federal funding, $16 million to address compliance statewide, $18 million for improvements to support facilities on campus, $50 million in project completion funds, $72 million for regional kitchens to support local school lunches, $20 million for pre-kindergarten classroom capacity, and $115 million to support additional education-related priorities.
And on environmental sustainability, $7 million for climate change and sea level rise adaptation projects, $16 million for watershed protection initiatives, $10 million for state parks, $8 million to monitor the health of drinking water aquifers, and $28 million for small boat harbors, including Lahaina Small Boat Harbor.
For Hawaiian homelands, we've included $20 million for repair and maintenance projects statewide. Under health, there are a total of $115 million for healthcare services statewide, including $25 million for the new Keao Benioff Medical Center, $13 million for Kona Community Hospital's new emergency department. Also included under health is $40 million for critical repairs to the Hawaii State Hospital campus, as well as $132 million, including federal funds, for wastewater and safe drinking water projects.
For the libraries, $52 million for the state library system, and under public safety, $7 million to address ADA compliance statewide, $28 million for the Consolidated Health and Mental Health Care Unit at Halava Correctional Center, $5 million for the Women's Correctional Center, $30 million for the new Oahu Community Correctional Facility, $10 million for security perimeter upgrades, $4.5 million for the DoCare in DLNR.
Under technology modernization, we've included $35 million for the new enterprise financial accounting system and $10 million for the benefits eligibility system. Under transportation, this budget includes $1.78 billion for airports, $142 million for commercial harbors, and $1.5 billion for state highway systems.
And finally, for the University of Hawaii, $118 million for student housing improvements at Manoa, $59 million for modernization improvements at Manoa, and $10 million for athletic improvements at Manoa. $10 million for the College of Tropical Agriculture and Human Resilience, $40 million for community colleges statewide, $15 million for Kauai Community College student, faculty, staff, and workforce housing, $15 million for improvements at UH Hilo, and $7 million for improvements at UH West Oahu. With this, these are the highlights only, and there'll be much more in our budget worksheets that will be passed out to you shortly. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. So what we're going to be doing is we're going to be passing out the CIP sheets and some of the highlights that we have in the operational budget. And we'll give the members a few minutes to review them, and then we'll move to vote. Just a quick note, just so everybody's kind of clear. So House Bill 300 CD1 appropriates in general funds for FY26 $10,593,000 for FY26 and $10,637,000 in FY27. All means of finance is $19,940 billion, $19.940 billion in FY26 and $19.763 in FY27. Okay, so we're going to take a short recess for everybody to review all these things. Short recess. Okay, we're gonna reconvene the conference committee on House Bill 300 HD1 SD1. I know you guys read fast, so you went through it already. So the recommendation is that we pass with amendments. We can read them all over again if you want. But I think we'll pass on that. Yeah, can I take the vote for the, well, I'll take the vote. Okay. Voting on House Bill HD1 SD1 with amendments. I vote aye. Vice Chair?
Aye.
Representatives Holt? Aye. Hasi? Aye. Liloy? Aye. Kitagawa?
Aye.
Kush?
Aye.
Lamosal? Lee? Aye. Miyake? Aye. Morikawa? Aye. Takenouchi? Oh, you were? Oh. Okay, I got that. Yeah, I'm sorry. Grandinetti. I did them wrong. Okay, thank you. Templo.
Aye.
Alcos.
Aye.
Reyes Ora.
Aye.
Okay, may I take the vote for the Senate?
Yes.
Okay, Senator De La Cruz.
Aye.
Vice Chair Morawaki.
Aye.
Co-chair. Senators Aquino.
Aye.
Decoit. Elefante.
Aye.
Hashimoto.
Aye.
Inoue. Kanuha. Kidani. Kim. Lee.
Aye.
Wakai. And Favela. Okay, we have a bill. Thank you very much. Okay, thank you. We are adjourned.
reconvening the Conference Committee of the House Judiciary and the Senate, House Committee Judiciary and Hawaiian Affairs, and the Senate Committee on Judiciary with our cohorts in the House and Senate for the consideration of House Bill 400 related to the judiciary. I'm going to, just for clarity, I'm going to read the conferees again. On behalf of the House, Tarnas and Yamashita as co-chairs, members Poi Poi, Takenouchi, and Garcia.
Thank you for the Senate. Myself as chair, Senator Moriwaki as co-chair, and Awa as manager.
Thank you for your work on this judiciary budget, Chair Rhodes, and thank you to Chair Yamashita for your work on this as well, and thanks to the judiciary team and their good work on this judiciary budget. The judiciary is a separate branch of government, and we as a legislature are responsible for appropriating funds, but we recognize that you are a separate branch of government, and we acknowledge your good work carrying out the judiciary's responsibilities. On this measure, we have made some adjustments, and let me just read through them. On page 1, program ID, Judd 601, sequence 2060-001. I sound just like you. House Senate adjustment, sequence 3000. In Judd 320, I'm going to tell you what we did, and then I'll read the code. So there were 17 vacant positions that were initially going to be taken and the money taken, but we've negotiated now it's just going to be 3 positions. And the details are House and Senate adjustment, sequence 3000. In Judd 320, it's minus 57,096 for both years. In Judd 350, minus $65,664 in both years. And in Judd 601, minus $31,548 in A funds for both years. So we've not taken the positions, we've just reduced the funds that were assigned to those positions. Page 2, in program ID Judd 601, sequence 2100-001, we went with the Senate. Page 2, Judd 601, sequence 2101-001, we went with the Senate position. These are basically, these two were funding for civil legal services and federal court proceedings. And then we did an addition on Judge 601, adding sequence 3000, House and Senate adjustment, $2,218,922 in fiscal year 26. This is for the fiscal year 26 only for the salary commission approved salary increases. We did not have agreement on fiscal year 27. You're going to have to come back and work on that next session. So those are the changes that we have in the conference draft that I'm seeking your approval on today.
We concur.
Okay. Let's go ahead and vote. House Bill 400, HD1, SD2. The recommendation of House and Senate managers is to pass with amendments. Chair Tarnas votes aye. Co-Chair Yamashita.
Aye.
Member Poi Poi.
Aye.
Representative Takenouchi.
Aye.
Representative Garcia. Aye. Thank you. May I take the vote for the Senate?
Please.
Chair Rose.
Aye.
Co-Chair Moriwaki.
Aye.
Member Awa.
Excuse me.
Excused. Thank you very much. We have a bill.
Thank you.
There being no further business before this committee, we are adjourned. reconvening the conference committee between the House and Senate for the consideration of House Bill 410 relating to the budget of the Office of Hawaiian Affairs. On behalf of the House, we have Tarnas and Yamashita as co-chairs, members Poi Poi, Takenouchi, and Garcia.
On the Senate side, we have myself, Senator Richards as chair, co-chair Senator Moriwaki, and members Keokolole and DeCourt.
Thank you. On this measure, I say with reluctance and that the House is agreeing to the Senate Draft 1.
Thank you.
I recognize this didn't fund the additional initiatives from Office of Hawaiian Affairs. I would like to work with them to see if we can come back again and try that one more time. But it's not the case that we're able to fund them this year. Our recommendation is to move out a Conference Draft 1, which is basically the Senate Draft 1.
Thank you.
Okay?
Yep, good to
You
go.
okay to go to a vote on that?
Yep.
Okay. So we're voting on House Bill 410, HD1, SD1. With amendments, yeah, so we're going to pass it as a CD. Tarnas votes aye. Co-Chair Yamashita?
Aye.
Representative Poi Poi?
Aye.
Representative Takenouchi?
Aye.
Representative Garcia? Reservations. May I take the vote for the Senate?
Please.
Chair Richards?
Aye.
Co-Chair Moriwaki?
Aye.
Senator Kehokolole?
Aye.
Senator DeCourt?
Aye.
Thank you. We have a bill. Thank you very much. We are adjourned.